Hey guys, tonight we embark on one of the most soothing, slow-paced journeys in ancient history. You're going to become a Roman olive. Yes, really. You're small, greenish-black, slightly oily, and your whole life is about to be a long, bumpy ride from tree branch to Roman table and beyond. Picture this. It's dawn in Hispania, what we now call Spain, and the hills are misty and cool. There's a dampness to the air that smells like earth, thyme, and slightly overripe figs. You're dangling from a gnarled olive tree that's been here longer than most of the people working in this grove. The light is soft and golden, with just enough breeze to rustle the grass and make the mule tethered nearby sigh dramatically. And then a rough hand plucks you from your peaceful perch. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The hand that grabs you belongs to a farmhand who's been up since long before dawn. His tunic is itchy wool, and he's already cursing in Latin under his breath, though you, being an olive, are blissfully immune to workplace stress. He tosses you into a wide wicker basket along with your fellow olives, some uncomfortably squishy, others still green and stubborn. There's a thump, a few leaf fragments stick to your skin, and now you're suddenly jostling around in what feels like the produce version of a crowded city bus. The grove around you is ancient, planted by Roman colonists generations ago. Olive trees here are pruned into strange knotted shapes, part sculpture, part tree. Historians still argue whether the Romans preferred their olives green or fully ripe. But out here, no one's debating anything. They're just trying to get enough picked before the midday heat kicks in and everyone starts melting like wax figurines. Above you, the sky lightens from lavender to pearl. Birds, probably starlings, flit overhead, and a distant rooster crows like he's got something to prove. You'd be enjoying the serenity if not for the part where you're now smooshed between a squashed purple olive and a tiny beetle who seems just as confused as you. A grumpy foreman who has likely never smiled in his life barks something about quotas and hauls the basket toward a shaded sorting station. Here, you're dumped unceremoniously onto a wide, shallow tray. Sunlight streams in, revealing just how many odd-shaped olives you're surrounded by. Some are perfect ovals. Others look like they've been stepped on by a tiny Roman boot. A woman with quick fingers and a slightly judgmental expression begins picking through the pile. She's sorting you into different baskets, some destined for oil, some for eating, and some, well, best not to ask. Her fingers are stained a faint greenish brown, and she mutters to herself as she works. You suspect she gives each olive a little nickname? You're pretty sure she calls you Lumpy. Mainstream Roman agricultural manuals, yes, those were a thing, talk in great detail about the olive harvest. One, by a guy named Columella, includes an entire chapter on when not to pick, which is adorable because nobody in this grove is listening to him. They pick when the mule is awake and the basket isn't too full yet. You're placed in a decent enough pile with a few other semi-ripe friends. A squishy one beside you murmurs, "At least we're not the table olives," with a hint of pride. You don't know what that means yet. You will. The hours slide by. The sun climbs higher, and the smell of sun-warmed olives becomes overpowering in a way that's both delicious and faintly alarming. Occasionally, a fly lands on you, does a little victory dance, and zips off again. The beetle from earlier has made a break for it and is now crawling purposefully toward a shady patch under a grapevine. Around midday, the pickers gather beneath an old fig tree for lunch. They eat flatbread, cured meat, and, yes, olives. They don't eat you, though. Not yet. You hear one of them joke that the last time someone ate a raw olive right off the branch, he made the exact face of a constipated goat. You file that image away in your imaginary olive brain. This, by the way, is true. Raw olives, straight from the tree, are intensely bitter due to a compound called Old European. Historians still argue whether the ancient Romans ever developed a method to remove this bitterness before pressing the oil, or if they just powered through with a grimace and a shrug. You lurch forward again, now bouncing slowly in a creaky, leather-lined cart as the mule ahead plods along the rocky path. The hills of Hispania roll out around you in waves of olive green and dusty gold, and the sky above is that perfect shade of blue that looks like it hasn't been invented yet. The cart groans with every bump, and the olives around you grumble in their own quiet way, some of them leaking slightly, others just nervously rocking back and forth. The mule is named something unflattering, probably Beanfard or Old Fella, and he moves with the weary precision of someone who's done this route so often he could walk it backwards. Occasionally he farts dramatically, and you feel the vibrations all the way down the wooden slats. No one is impressed. The driver is a teenage boy who spends more time tossing pebbles at bushes than actually steering. He hums a tune you vaguely recognize, possibly an ancient Roman version of "Wheels on the cart go creak, creak, creak." When he gets bored, he throws a fig pit in your direction. It bounces off someone 2 olives down and rolls away. As you trundle along, the scenery changes. The tidy rows of olive trees begin to thin, replaced by low scrub rocks and the occasional half-collapsed shrine to some forgotten deity. You pass a shepherd dozing beside a goat that seems to be chewing on a sandal. You roll on. At last, the cart crests a hill, and there it is below you, the olive press. It sits at the edge of a village, surrounded by cracked walls, clucking chickens, and one very nosy dog. The press itself looks like someone tried to build a sundial and accidentally invented torture. 2 massive stone wheels squat beside a wide trough carved into limestone, and there's a smell in the air like old grass and warm oil. The cart rattles to a stop, and the teenage driver stretches like he's just conquered Gaul. "Oi!" he yells toward the building. "Another batch!" You're unloaded with all the care of a sack of dirty laundry dumped onto a wide mat woven from reeds. There you wait and wait. A fly lands on your back and takes a nap. A sparrow hops nearby and eyes the pile with suspicion, then leaves. Eventually, a man with forearms the size of amphorae lumbers over. His tunic is stained a dozen shades of olive, and his sandals squelch when he walks. He grabs handfuls of olives, you included, and drops them into a hollowed-out basin beneath the great round stone. It's time. With a low groan, the press begins to move, the huge stone wheel pushed by another donkey who looks just as resigned as the mule from earlier, begins its slow orbit. You and the others are ground down together, mashed into a purple-green paste, that sticks to everything. It's not exactly a glamorous moment, but it's undeniably transformative. Above, the afternoon sun blazes. Around you, farm hands move in slow motion, stirring the pulp, adjusting levers, and casually insulting each other's cooking skills. The press oozes with thick, glossy liquid, your precious oil, dribbling into a clay-lined trough where it will rest and settle. Mainstream historians often point out that Roman presses were marvels of ancient engineering. Some used screw mechanisms made of wood and bronze, others relied purely on weight and leverage. What you're experiencing is more old school, muscle-powered, stone-weighted, and utterly unhurried. As the pressing continues, one of the workers nearby mentioned something odd. A rumor that certain Roman bathhouses use leftover olive pulp as facial masks. "It makes your skin smell like salad," he jokes, rubbing the back of his hand across his jaw. The others laugh, but not too loud. This is serious work, after all. Your world becomes a sticky, fragrant mush. The press creaks endlessly, and you're slowly transformed from olive to oil. Somewhere in this gooey metamorphosis, you accept your fate. You're now part of something larger, literally and metaphorically slicker. Historians still argue whether this cold pressing method, where no heat is added, produced better oil or just more expensive stuff to sell to gullible senators. What's clear is that the process hasn't changed much in centuries. It's still a matter of weight, patience, and a deep understanding of squish physics. As the press finishes, your remains are scraped off the stones and dumped into another trough. This one shallower and cooler, placed beneath an awning of woven reeds. You settle there with what's left of your fellow olives, drifting in and out of an oily half-dream, listening to the sounds of distant sheep and the gentle splash of water being poured over tired feet. There's something almost reverent about this stage. The workers stop for a break, nibbling on crusty bread and pickled onions. You hear one of them mutter, "Best press of the week," and feel a strange pride, even though your existence has now been reduced to a glistening swirl in a clay basin. Nearby, an old woman collects olive pits to use as kindling. She hums an off-key tune about the goddess Minerva, who, according to myth, invented the olive tree as a peace offering during a godly turf war. It's oddly comforting to think that even in mythology, olives were caught in someone else's drama. The shadows lengthen and the breeze cools. You're beginning to separate now. Oil rising to the top, water and pulp drifting down. This is the slow, sleepy part of the process, and nobody rushes it. The longer the oil settles, the clearer it becomes, the better it tastes. You drift there, sun-warmed and silent, basking in your new slippery identity. The sun has dipped low enough to paint the basin's rim in golden light, and you, now a delicate layer of oil on the surface, glisten like some kind of artisanal soup. Around you, the olive press winds down for the day. The workers have gone home for supper. Boiled lentils, barley cakes, maybe a bit of fish if someone was lucky at the river, and the world grows quieter. The oil basin is covered with a broad woven mat to keep the dust out and the more adventurous chickens away. You feel a few lazy ripples as the evening breeze tickles the surface. A lizard scurries across the edge, stops, and peers at you with suspicion before vanishing into a crack in the stone. You'd think, being oil now, your journey would be over. But oh no, this is Rome. Everything is just getting started. In the morning, the press team is back, slightly groggy and already bickering over who stole whose sandals. One of them scoops you gently, well, mostly gently, into a large amphora. It's a graceful, wide-bellied clay vessel painted with fading symbols and worn Latin script. If amphora could talk, this one would sound like an aging sea captain who's seen things. The amphora is sealed with a waxy plug and loaded onto a cart along with its many siblings. It groans under the weight. Turns out, oil is heavy when you're moving it by hand. Your new roommates slosh quietly as the journey resumes, this time headed not just down the hill but eastward, toward the coast. Historians still argue whether these amphorae were standardized for volume or if Roman merchants just eyeballed it and hoped for the best. Many amphorae had painted markings that recorded origin, quality, and the name of the producer. Yours, faintly etched, reads something like Fronto's Grove, Hispania. Not exactly catchy branding, but it gets the job done. The road is made of those famous Roman stones, flat, square, and very unkind to wheels. Every bump makes the amphoraes clack against one another like grumpy siblings in the back seat. The driver hums an old ballad about a sailor who fell in love with a dolphin. No one knows why. After several dusty miles, your cart joins a caravan of others, some loaded with grain, others with figs, wine, or fish sauce, sealed in jars that smell suspicious even from a distance. The smells mingle in the warm air, a fragrant bouquet of commerce and questionable hygiene. You pass a traveling troupe of performers practicing lines in high-pitched Latin and an elderly man selling miracle pickles from a suspiciously leaky barrel. The road continues, winding through olive groves, vineyards, and towns with chipped fountains where children splash and geese strut like emperors. You rumble across a bridge that spans a lazy river, and for a brief moment, a child points at the caravan and shouts, "Look! Oil for the baths!" Close, but not quite. Eventually, you reach a Roman port town bustling with energy. The docks are alive with shouting sailors, creaking ropes, and the occasional escaped chicken flapping dramatically underfoot. The smell of salt and brine mixes with that faint, ever-present scent of olive oil, which clings to the air like perfume on an over-enthusiastic matron. Here you wait again, watching with your non-existent eyes as dock workers load and unload ships bound for every corner of the empire. There's one bound for Britannia, its deck already slick with sea spray. Another ship, smaller and mean-looking, appears to have a cat as its captain, or at least a cat that no one dares move from the helm. You're carried aboard a large merchant galley called the Plump Eel, a name that inspires neither confidence nor clarity. The sailors tie down the amphorae with coarse rope and pat them like old friends. One whispers, "Behave yourselves this time," and you wonder if the oil got rowdy last voyage. The ship creaks and shudders as it pushes off. Oars dip rhythmically into the water, and the sail unfurls with a sound like 100 canvas sighs. You sway slightly with the motion, nestled in your ceramic womb as the coast of Hispania fades into the haze. At sea, days blur together. You feel the rhythmic rocking, the occasional crash of waves, and once a particularly aggressive storm that sends one jar rolling sideways before a sailor catches it with the precision of someone who really doesn't want to clean up an oil spill mid-typhoon. The cook on board occasionally opens the cargo hatch and grumbles about using just a bit for stew. You're spared, thankfully. Others are not so lucky. A faint smell of garlic, onions, and regret wafts below deck afterward. As the ship passes through calm stretches of water, you overhear snippets of sailor gossip. One swears he saw a sea monster shaped like a giant eel with Roman eyebrows. Another claims a mermaid stole his comb. Historians still argue whether Roman sailors truly believed in sea creatures or if they just got bored enough to make them up on long voyages. Eventually, you dock in Ostia, the great port of Rome. It's everything the village wasn't: loud, smelly, and absurdly crowded. There are men in togas arguing over shipments, women in elaborate hairstyles trading gossip while buying perfume, and street musicians playing what sounds like a kazoo made of goat gut. You're offloaded again, this time with something like reverence. Straight to the patrician villas, someone says, inspecting the amphora's markings. Top quality Hispania oil. They'll smear this on everything. You glow with a smugness no olive has any right to feel. From grove to press, to ship to shore, you've made it. You are now gliding through the heart of the Roman Empire, tucked securely in the belly of a cart, creaking under its own weight and ambition. The bustling port of Ostia fades behind you, replaced by the meticulously paved Via Ostiensis, a road that leads directly to Rome, the city of cities. If you had eyes, you'd squint at the dusty horizon where the first signs of urban sprawl begin to unfurl like laundry on market day. Villas with red-tiled roofs peek from behind cypress trees. Mile markers pass at a steady clip, each one announcing your inevitable arrival into a world where senators argue over salad dressings and marble statues outnumber pigeons. The cart driver, an older man with a sun-ripened face and a tunic that has definitely seen better decades, hums an off-key version of what might be a funeral march. Occasionally, he swats at invisible flies and curses softly at the mule, whose name appears to be Turnip. Turnip, in fairness, is doing his best. As you jostle along, a few more facts seep in from your surroundings. Roman carts aren't allowed inside the city during daylight hours. Too noisy, too congested. So you, noble oil, will be spending the night just outside the city gates in a roadside horium, a warehouse specifically designed to store and distribute goods. Historians agree that these warehouses were marvels of Roman logistics. Some were temperature-controlled using clever ventilation systems, and others had guards to protect against olive oil theft, which, yes, was a real and surprisingly common crime. Olive oil wasn't just a condiment. It was lamp fuel, soap, skin care, medicine, and religious offering. In short, it was liquid gold. You settle into your spot amid stacked amphorae. Some are labeled for the army, others for temples, and one slightly sticky amphora is tagged Athlete's Bath Oil, do not drink. The air is thick with mingled scents, garlic, dust, fish, and oregano. Somewhere in the distance, someone is trying to play a pan flute and failing magnificently. You spend the night in the dim, echoing warehouse, listening to the creak of wooden beams and the occasional scratch of a rat attempting a heist. Just as you're dozing into a viscous slumber, a mouse scurries over the rim of a nearby amphora and immediately slips, tail first, into someone's lid. Poor guy. You hope he knows how to swim in extra virgin. By dawn, you're back on the move. The sun rises, the gates open, and carts begin trickling into Rome under the watchful gaze of marble gods and stern-faced sentries. You pass under a massive archway where someone's carved an inscription boasting about conquering a region that may or may not have existed. Rome opens up before you like a giant, noisy, sun-baked stage, the smells hit first. Fresh bread, roasting meat, sewage, perfume, and sweat. Next comes the noise. Vendors hawking everything from fried dormice to silver hairpins, kids chasing each other with fig stains on their tunics, dogs barking at literally nothing, and distant echoes of political speeches that sound suspiciously like tantrums. You pass a public fountain where women are washing laundry while gossiping about a senator's new girlfriend. A steward appears, inspects your amphora, and nods approvingly. "Prime harvest," he mutters. You're carefully unloaded and rolled, yes, literally rolled, into the villa's kitchen storage area where your new life begins. This kitchen is no simple rustic setup. It's a bustling operation run with military precision. Cooks, assistants, and a very judgmental cat dart about as dishes are prepared for the midday cena. Your amphora is propped near a wooden counter with visible knife marks, and a bowl of figs so ripe they're practically auditioning for a wine press. Someone removes the wax seal with a curved blade, dips in a long-handled spoon, and samples the oil with a dramatic sniff. "Mmm," she says. "Nutty, with a touch of grass?" Her colleague replies, "Tastes like money." They use you sparingly, but often. A drizzle on lentils, a rub down for a roast chicken, a polish for a bronze serving platter. Apparently, oil from Hispania is the preferred choice for this household's master. An aging senator who insists he can taste the difference between grove altitudes. Quirkier uses follow. One servant dips a comb into you before brushing the senator's wig, so it won't frizz. Another adds a splash to a tiny jar of scented oil, declaring it divine for elbows. And then, as if that weren't enough, a particularly enthusiastic housekeeper claims the leftover oil will be rubbed on the front door to keep evil spirits out. Historians still debate whether that worked or just gave burglars a better grip. In the quiet moments between spoons and smears, you feel oddly content. Not all olives get this far. Most get tossed into cheap sauce or smeared onto bread for soldiers in a camp somewhere cold and muddy. You've made it to the capital, the belly of the beast, where your subtle bitterness and silky weight are savored by Rome's elite. That night, tucked safely in the villa, you catch faint echoes of a poem recited in the atrium. It's about olive trees and love and war and something involving a turtle. Hard to follow, honestly, but beautifully read. The oil in your clay belly feels warm and drowsy, like you've done something right. Time passes strangely in the villa, each day similar to the last, marked by the clink of spoons and the lazy swing of kitchen doors. You settle into your amphora like a seasoned retiree on a sun-drenched balcony, occasionally stirred, but mostly left in peace. The rhythm of Roman domestic life is soft and repetitive, like waves lapping against a harbor wall. Even the loudest scolding of a clumsy kitchen boy seems cushioned by marble walls and distant lyre music. Then, one morning, everything changes. You're scooped, again, always scooped, and poured into a smaller travel-sized flask. The steward sniffs. "For the mistress," he murmurs. "She's off to the countryside, needs her oil." The flask is tightly sealed with a cork and tied with a bit of red twine, like a festive olive-scented present. You're tucked into a basket next to a cluster of perfumes, medicinal herbs, and what appears to be a bronze toothpick shaped like a dolphin. You are now part of a noblewoman's travel kit. Not bad for a former fruit. The journey out of Rome is smoother than your entrance. The roads here are still paved, but less congested. The villa's litter bearers 4 surprisingly muscular young men carry your mistress and her belongings in a cushioned lectica with silk curtains to shade her from the sun. From inside, you hear her murmur about the heat, the dust, and the senator's tiresome obsession with historical reenactments. The countryside unfurls before you in rolling fields of wheat, orchards, and vineyards. You pass herds of goats guided by children in tunics too big for them, and shepherds arguing about whether Jupiter or Mercury is more helpful with stubborn animals. Historians still debate how widely these deities were invoked in rural life, but given the shouting, you suspect Mercury is losing today. The villa you're heading to is perched on a hillside surrounded by olive trees that sway with almost conspiratorial familiarity. These aren't your trees, of course, but they rustle in greeting, all the same. The house is smaller, cozier, and smells of lavender and damp stone. You're placed on a carved wooden shelf next to a bronze mirror and a bowl of unripe plums. The window beside you offers a wide view of the countryside, and for the first time in a while, you're still. Then, activity. Your flask is unstoppered, and a few golden drops are added to a bowl of honey and crushed herbs. The lady of the house dips her fingers into the mixture and rubs it gently on her temples. "For the headaches," her servant says. The recipe, you learn, Hispania oil always helps. Scribonius Largus, you're a who apparently recommended olive oil for everything from toothaches to spider bites. Whether it worked is still debated by modern scholars, but no one in this villa seems to care. You are soothing, luxurious, and elegantly foreign. That's what matters. Later that evening, more of you is drizzled onto a plate of boiled chickpeas. A philosopher guest claims this was Socrates' favorite snack, though no one can confirm whether Socrates actually liked legumes. The meal is followed by singing, flute playing, and one memorable moment where the lady of the house insists on teaching her lapdog to dance. You witness the performance from your shelf, glistening modestly under the lamplight. Over the next week, your uses multiply. You're mixed into face masks with ground pearl, warmed and rubbed onto joints aching from too much stooping in the garden, and once, just once, used to unstick a jammed door hinge. You are very versatile. One of the servants even rubs a bit into her hair before braiding it. "Shiny as a senator's bald head," she says proudly. A boy nearby snorts. "Or as slippery as his politics." There's laughter, though it's quickly stifled. Can't risk word getting back to the big house. Historians still argue whether these cosmetic uses were widespread or just practiced by elite women mimicking Greek trends. Either way, your origin story as a simple olive feels increasingly distant. One afternoon, the mistress hosts a bath. Not just any bath, a Roman countryside bathing spectaculum, complete with perfumed water, flower petals, and some very confused geese that wander in halfway through. You are heated gently and poured into the water, along with lavender and something that smells suspiciously like pickled brine. You swirl through the bathwater, soothing skin and floating in lazy spirals, as women recline on marble benches and complain about their husbands, the tax collectors, and the state of gladiator fashion. One woman swears by oil massages for everything, and the others nod. Whether they're being sincere or just enjoying the spa day atmosphere is unclear. You, meanwhile, drift among the petals like a well-traveled ghost, having now touched nearly every corner of Roman domestic life. From food to face, medicine to massage, Your golden touch has found its way into nearly everything. You've become a quiet luxury, a background comfort, the unsung hero of this villa's gentle days. Then, one evening, a storm rolls in. Thunder rumbles like Jupiter's bowling night, and rain pelts the tile roof with a fury. The mistress, restless from too much wine and a game of dice gone sideways, demands her flask of oil again. This time, it's for the lamp. Yes, your fate now includes fire. A drop at a time, you're poured into a small clay lamp, then lit with a taper. The flame flickers warmly, casting shadows of ivy and curtain tassels across the bedroom walls. The lady falls asleep with a scroll on her chest and one slipper dangling from her foot. The dog snores. You glow quietly, slowly burning away into the night. Not all of you, just enough to illuminate this final sleepless scene. Morning again, and you've survived the flames. Well, some of you did. The lamp was refilled with cheaper oil in the early hours, and you, now half used, are corked once more and returned to your shelf. A little more seasoned, a little more worldly, and maybe just the tiniest bit smoky. The countryside villa eases into another lazy day. The birds are loud, the dog is louder, and somewhere a servant is very unsuccessfully chasing a chicken with a ribbon tied around its neck. As for you, you're about to go back on the road. Apparently, the mistress has decided she's bored of rural piety and needs to return to Rome to buy real garum, not this watery provincial paste. The basket is packed again. This time, you ride next to a new perfume vial, a wax tablet with someone's terrible poetry etched into it, and a half-eaten fig. The fig doesn't make it far. The trip back to Rome is uneventful, but you notice things more now. The groves, the roadside shrines with faintly worn offerings, the travelers exchanging gossip at rest stops where snacks are sold and bladders are emptied. You overhear one man loudly complaining about Gallic knockoff oil, which is frankly offensive to several Gallic olive farmers who are just doing their best. Once inside the city, your flask is delivered not to the original villa, but to a friend's house. One of those friends who borrows things and forgets to return them for several decades. You are now in the possession of a wealthy merchant's household. New smells, new kitchen, new chaos. Here, things move faster. There are more mouths, more meals, and significantly more shouting. The merchant himself has a fondness for North African stews, thick with spices and goat meat, and you are often called upon to smooth out the flavor. "Just a drizzle," says the cook, right before adding 2 full spoonfuls. You become a staple of his nightly entertainments, too. Elaborate dinners with musicians, dances, and enough reclining to make modern chiropractors weep. You are paired with fish sauce and honey, roasted dormice with herbs, and once, tragically, a dessert that somehow involves pickled turnips. Historians still debate whether that was intentional or the result of poor labeling. This household uses oil not just for cooking, but as a lubricant for hinges, as furniture polish, and as an ingredient in their household soap. One overly enthusiastic maid even tries using you to clean a marble bust of Hercules. The bust ends up slippery enough to slide off its pedestal. Hercules survives, but now he leans slightly to the left. There's also a brief foray into amateur medicine. When the merchant's youngest son catches a cold, you're warmed with crushed garlic and applied to his chest. He immediately starts sneezing and calls you squid juice. Rude, but not entirely inaccurate. Then one day, you are chosen for a very different kind of journey. The merchant, it turns out, has been invited to a banquet hosted by a senator whose ego could easily block the Tiber. This senator is known for showing off exotic ingredients, spices from India, dates from Judea, and flamingo tongues from wherever people have tragically bad taste. To impress, the merchant offers to bring oil from Hispania. You are poured into a sleek ceramic bottle with a decorative stopper shaped like a dolphin. A little over the top, maybe, but it's Rome. Understatement isn't exactly the house style. The bottle is wrapped in cloth and placed in a basket alongside other luxuries, including saffron, candied pine nuts, and one very nervous tortoise destined for soup. At the senator's mansion, more palace than house, you are presented with a flourish. The head cook, wearing a tunic stained with success and exhaustion, uncorks you and sniffs. Ah, oleum ex Hispania. He nods. Let's see if it can save this peacock liver pudding. You're drizzled, stirred, and brushed onto dishes so decadent you feel almost embarrassed to be involved. Peacock, eel, stuffed dormice, honeyed locusts, nothing is off limits. You even get dripped into a wine reduction that simmers so long you suspect it's achieved sentience. At the feast itself, people recline on silk cushions while slaves bring out platter after platter. The senator makes a speech that lasts so long, 2 guests actually doze off mid-toast. A poet recites a few verses about olives and virtue. No one claps, but everyone nods like they understand. One guest dips his bread into a saucer of oil, and murmurs, "Tastes like sunshine," and taxes, which is either a compliment or a cry for help. In one memorable moment, a parrot escapes from its cage, lands on a guest's plate, and loudly shouts, "More oil," before stealing a date. The laughter is genuine, so is the applause. You suspect the parrot will be invited back before half the guests are. That night, leftovers are packed into clay containers, including you. You're carried to the senator's private quarters, where he apparently enjoys a midnight snack of bread, oil, and bitter greens. His slaves whisper about his digestion and how he swears olive oil keeps the gears moving. You don't ask for elaboration. Over the next few days, your role becomes smaller, subtler. A dab here, a drizzle there. You help oil a squeaky door, shine a soldier's boots, and once again, find yourself fueling a lamp during a rainy evening. As the senator retires for the night, he mutters something about needing better oil next time, maybe from Crete. Typical. No matter how far you travel, there's always someone who prefers the neighbor's fruit. Still, you're here. You've gone from grove to table, from medicine to lamp flame, from sleepy villa shelf to senator's banquet. Not bad for a droop a few days pass in a drowsy sort of limbo. You're mostly left alone now, resting in the senator's pantry among dusty amphorae of honeyed wine, fig jam, and what smells like suspiciously old fish sauce. You're sealed again, cool and quiet, and might have even started to doze off. If oils could sleep, but soon the pantry door creaks open. It's not a servant, but the senator's nephew, an awkward young man with 2 long limbs and a scroll perpetually tucked under one arm. He's on some personal mission involving culinary innovation and breaking the garum ceiling, which you suspect are both euphemisms for "I'm not good at my uncle's politics, so let me play with the spices." He plucks you from the shelf with a little aha, sniffs the top, nods like an expert, and sneaks you out under his tunic. Not exactly the triumphant parade you once imagined, but at least it's a change of pace. The nephew's apartment is a cluttered corner of the city filled with half-finished mosaics, broken string instruments, and one very jumpy cat. The kitchen is more experimental lab than functional space. Clay ovens in odd shapes, spice jars labeled in 6 different hands, and a scale balanced on what might be a repurposed helmet. You are unsealed and placed on the table, then admired. Hispania gold, he whispers dramatically. Tonight, we change dinner forever. He then proceeds to make a porridge of barley, goat cheese, and chopped pine nuts. You are drizzled into the pan while he hums tunelessly. The resulting dish is edible, barely. He proclaims it revolutionary. The cat gags theatrically, but the oil, that's you, is the best part. You lend silkiness to the otherwise chalky mess and a faint echo of your sun-baked origins. For the next week, the nephew uses you in nearly everything. Pickled eggs? Oil? Steamed oysters? Oil. Stewed dates soaked in mulled wine? Why not oil? One night, he even writes a short poem about your golden body more fluid than the Nile. He recites it to the cat. The cat leaves. Historians still argue whether these kinds of culinary experiments, combining traditional staples with foreign ingredients, were common in everyday Roman homes, or limited to bored aristocrats and their artistically inclined nephews. You now feel qualified to weigh in strongly. One morning, the nephew hosts a salon, a kind of informal gathering of other young creatives, philosophers, and at least one man who only communicates by quoting Virgil. You are set on the table prominently, like an honored guest. The bread is fresh, the conversation is not. A debate arises over whether olive oil counts as a food or a medicine, or perhaps even a religious substance. Someone insists that Athena herself gave olives to humankind and that every drop is sacred. Another says that's just Athens trying to sell more exports. As they bicker, you are passed from hand to hand, admired, dipped, tasted. Someone adds a sprig of rosemary to your flask for depth. Someone else suggests boiling you with fish bones to see what happens. You'd protest if you could. Later, the party fades into a kind of cozy sprawl. People recline on cushions, someone singing off-key in the corner, and someone else is asleep with their head on a tray of lentils. A girl with ink-stained fingers doodles amphorae in the margins of her tablet and adds little smiling olives inside. You're honored. The nephew, ever the generous host, sends leftovers home with his friends, including you. Just like that, you're passed again. This time to a young woman who paints miniature frescoes for children's bedrooms and occasionally teaches bored noble daughters how to sketch like the Greeks. She keeps you on her windowsill next to a bowl of rose petals and a few brushes hardened with pigment. In her care, you are mixed with ash and wax to create makeshift paint sealant. One morning, she mixes you with crushed berry juice to color a fresco of Venus lounging in an olive grove. She dabs you gently onto the painted limbs, saying, "There, she glows now." Venus does indeed glow. So does your flask, catching afternoon sun like a secret kept warm. You are also used to softened leather, her sandals, her sketch case, the straps on her easel, a little rubbed onto cracked palms after a long day of mixing pigment, a drop behind each ear before a client meeting. "For luck," she mutters. One evening, while she waits for a client who never shows, she leans against the window and watches the street bustle. She talks softly to you, not expecting a reply, about how expensive things have become, how few commissions are coming in, how she misses her grandmother's villa and the way the olive trees rustled at night. You don't answer, but your scent still smells faintly of Hispania, and your shimmer in the fading light offers a kind of comfort, small but real. Historians still debate how widely olive oil was used by Rome's artisan classes, whether it was a household staple or a luxury sparingly employed. But in this apartment, in this little window-lit studio, you are both a tool, a comfort, a piece of home. Eventually, your flask runs low. The artist sighs, turns you upside down, taps the bottom gently, and murmurs, "One last drop, then." She adds you to a small clay pot of perfume she's brewing. Lilac, laurel, and mystery. The oil gives it weight, softness. She corks it, labels it, and places it on the shelf. The flask is empty now, mostly. A whisper of golden residue clings to the inside. You've been so many things: salve, feast, lamp fuel, art supply. And though you're nearly gone, your story feels fuller with every strange, gentle twist. You rest in the quiet studio, overlooking the city that never really sleeps, except maybe for a few precious hours when even the cats go still and the shutters sway gently in the night wind. Time drifts onward. You remain on that dusty windowsill, your once bright label now faded like a whisper. The city outside hums softly, the clatter of carts and distant chatter settling into a slow, steady rhythm. Sometimes the artist comes by and picks up your flask, turns it in her hands, then sets it down again. She seems to treasure you more for memories than for oil now. One day, the artist receives a letter, parchment folded with a royal seal. Her patronage has been extended by an influential matron in a nearby province. A new opportunity awaits, far from Rome's crowded streets, where she'll paint frescoes in a villa overlooking olive groves not unlike those you once came from. She packs her tools carefully, and, in an act of quiet affection, wraps your empty flask in a cloth and tucks it into her satchel. You're not oil anymore. You're a keepsake, a reminder of journeys past and friendships forged. The journey by carriage is slow and gentle, the road lined with cypress and wildflowers. You peer through the folds of cloth at rolling hills, small villages, and olive trees swaying lazily in the breeze. The scent of the groves brings a distant memory, warm and comforting, of sun and earth and the slow patience of growth. Once at the villa, you're placed on a wooden shelf in a bright room filled with the scent of wet plaster and fresh paint. The artist sets to work, painting scenes of harvest, of dancers twirling beneath branches heavy with olives, and children chasing each other through sunlit groves. You are sometimes used to polish the wooden frames and to smooth the brush handles. The painter speaks softly to you during long afternoons, telling you stories she heard in Rome, tales of senators, poets, and that persistent parrot that demanded more oil. The villa's inhabitants are gentle, their days measured by the rhythm of planting and harvesting. At sunset, you watch from your shelf as women gather olives, their laughter blending with the rustle of leaves. You almost feel yourself growing roots again, grounded in this quiet corner of the world. Occasionally, you're taken down and filled, not with oil this time, but with fresh pressed juice from the harvest. It's tart and sweet, a nectar of the grove, and you sit by the window while the painter sketches nearby. The juice will become vinegar, a staple for meals in the coming months. Historians still debate whether Roman olive oil production was centralized in large estates or scattered across countless small groves tended by families and tenants. Here you sense both, the grand and the intimate woven together in the patterns of daily life. As the seasons shift, you witness the slow dance of time, the earth softening in spring rains, the heat of summer baking the soil, the heavy fruit dropping in autumn. The painter finishes her work, and the villa feels alive with color and story. One evening, the family hosts a modest feast. You are refilled once more, this time with oil from the new harvest. The smell is fresh and grassy, a bright echo of your beginnings. You are passed from hand to hand, drizzled over warm bread dipped in honey, and used to light small lamps that flicker gently on the table. The conversation is soft, full of jokes about last year's stubborn mule and the neighbor's new goat that thinks it's a dog. The laughter is easy, the night slow and comfortable. You rest easy, your long journey winding gently toward rest. The seasons turn again, and your place on the villa's shelf becomes more than just storage. You are now a symbol, a bottle that holds stories of faraway lands, of markets in Hispania, and of artistic experiments in Rome. The family cherishes you, occasionally polishing your glass until you shine like liquid sunlight caught in crystal. One afternoon, a local olive grower visits the villa, a burly man with calloused hands and a grin that suggests he's part farmer, part poet. He eyes your flask with interest and chuckles, "You've traveled more than I have." The painter introduces you proudly, explaining your long journey, your many uses, and the strange adventures you've had. The grower nods thoughtfully and shares tales of his own. Ancient pruning techniques, the secret to the perfect press, and the whispered rituals to coax the best flavor from the groves. He dips a finger into your oil and tastes, declaring it good enough to anoint emperors. The painter laughs, but you detect a hint of pride in her smile. Days later, the grower invites the family to join a harvest festival, a simple affair filled with music, dance, and plenty of food. You accompany them tucked safely in a basket alongside fresh bread and salted fish. The festival is a sensory tapestry. The thrum of lyres, the smell of roasting chestnuts, the dust rising in lazy swirls as children chase each other between olive trees heavy with fruit. You feel the warm sun on your glass and the cool shadow of ancient branches. At one point, a storyteller recounts a local myth about an olive tree that grew from a tear of Athena herself, a tree that never withers and whose oil grants wisdom and calm. You're passed among listeners, each imagining the magic as they taste a drop on their tongues. Historians still debate how deeply these myths influenced Roman agricultural practices, or if they were simply charming tales to add mystery to everyday life. But in this moment, surrounded by laughter and song, you feel the myth alive. As twilight descends, the family gathers around a fire. The grower dips bread into your oil, passing pieces to friends and neighbors. The oil glistens under the flickering flames, a golden thread weaving through the night. Later, you return to the villa, a little lighter now, but still full of quiet strength. You rest, content in the knowledge that you are part of this endless cycle of harvest and feast, of earth and story, of quiet moments shared under the olive trees. Winter whispers through the olive groves, softening the earth with gentle rains and drawing long shadows across the villa's walls. Inside, the painter works by firelight, her breath forming small clouds in the cool air as she mixes pigments and plans new frescoes. You sit nearby, a familiar presence in this cozy space, your glass catching the low glow like a star. On one particularly quiet evening, the painter experiments with blending you, her treasured olive oil, with beeswax and crushed herbs to create a soothing balm. She rubs it into her hands, sighing as the warmth spreads and the faint scent of lavender and pine rises. This is no longer just oil. You are comfort, care, a small luxury against the chill. Stories flow around the hearth, tales of ancient healers who believed olive oil could ease everything from sore muscles to restless minds. You listen, if oils could listen, to the gentle debate over whether olive oil's true power lay in its chemistry or its symbolism. Historians still argue whether Roman medicinal recipes were pragmatic or poetic gestures of hope. In the stillness, you recall your earliest days under Hispania's sun, the slow pressing of olives, the careful hands that first gathered you. Now you feel the weight of time, the many forms you have taken: food, fuel, paint, balm. Occasionally, the villa's cat curls beside you, purring softly, a warm anchor in the quiet room. The painter hums a melody that seems half forgotten, her brush tracing delicate lines across plaster. Your presence is steady, a gentle thread weaving through these moments. Outside, the olive trees stand bare but patient, waiting for spring's promise. The air smells of damp earth and distant firewood smoke, a lullaby of seasons turning. You sense the cycle is far from over, and your journey will continue in ways both surprising and serene. Spring arrives slowly, coaxing new life from the groves. Tiny green shoots unfurl alongside last year's gnarled branches, and the air is thick with the scent of fresh earth and blooming wildflowers. You feel a soft warmth returning, like a gentle sigh after winter's long hush. The painter ventures outdoors more often now, setting up her easel beneath the dappled shade of olive trees. You accompany her, nestled safely in a woven basket beside tubes of pigment and brushes frayed from use. She occasionally dips a brush into you, mixing a touch of your golden sheen with her paints to capture the glimmer of sunlight on leaves. You watch as she sketches new scenes: children gathering olives, an old man pressing fruit beneath a wooden beam, women weaving baskets from olive branches. Her fingers are stained with color and earth, her eyes bright with the quiet joy of creation. One afternoon, a traveler arrives at the villa, a scholar from the city with a satchel full of scrolls and a keen interest in ancient agriculture. He's fascinated by the olive groves and eager to learn about traditional cultivation methods. The painter introduces you with a proud smile, explaining your long journey from faraway Hispania to this tranquil place. The scholar tastes your oil thoughtfully, nodding in approval. He shares tales of olive cultivation across the Mediterranean and debates with the painter about the origins of certain pruning techniques. The days lengthen and grow warmer, and you sense the groves preparing for the coming harvest. The olive branches swell with fruit, their tiny green orbs shining like jewels against the leaves. The painter and scholar busy themselves with plans: how best to press the olives, which groves to prioritize, and whether to experiment with new blends. One morning, the painter fills your flask once again, this time with freshly pressed oil from the latest harvest. The scent is sharp and grassy, carrying hints of the sun and earth mingled in perfect harmony. You are no longer just a container. You are the essence of the grove itself, a liquid snapshot of a season's patience. The scholar eagerly collects samples, labeling each with meticulous care and debating the subtle differences between oils pressed from early versus late harvests. He speaks of the oil's importance not just as food or fuel, but as currency, medicine, and ritual offering throughout the Roman world. You are passed among many hands, tested, admired, poured over bread, and drizzled onto greens. The villagers gathered to celebrate the harvest with a feast full of laughter and music, and you are central to the table, a humble star of the evening. At one point, an elder tells a story of an ancient olive tree that survived a great fire, its roots still alive beneath the scorched earth. The tale sparks a quiet debate among listeners. Historians still argue whether the story is legend or recorded fact, but everyone agrees on one thing: the olive tree is a symbol of resilience. As the night deepens, the firelight flickers against your glass and the conversation softens into comfortable murmurs. You feel a deep connection to the land, the people, and the endless cycle of growth and renewal. Resting on the table amid the remnants of the feast, you catch a last gleam of moonlight, ready to carry the festival winds down, leaving behind the warm scent of wood smoke and faint traces of laughter. You are carefully corked and wrapped once more, preparing for a new phase of your journey. Travel to a bustling coastal town where merchants trade goods from across the empire. The road is dusty and slow, the cart rocking gently as it bumps over stones and ruts. You peer out through your wrappings, catching glimpses of vineyards, wheat fields, and roadside inns where weary travelers pause for rest and stories. At the bustling market, your glass is placed among rows of other bottles, spices from India, wines from Gaul, garum from the coast. Traders call out, haggling in many languages, and the scent of salt water mingles with earth and oil. Here you witness the vibrant exchange of cultures, goods, and ideas. The oil merchants boast of their wares' quality, and you overhear a lively discussion about the latest trends in cosmetic recipes, many incorporating olive oil as a base. The painter's flask is sold to a merchant with a fond nod, who promises to deliver it to a distant villa in North Africa. Your journey continues, this time across the sea. Historians still debate how olive oil's trade influenced regional diets and economies, with some arguing it was a staple commodity, while others suggest it held more ceremonial value. Your presence in the marketplace embodies this dual role, both everyday necessity and prized luxury. As the sun sets over the harbor, ships unload their precious cargo under the watchful eyes of dock workers and sailors. The air smells of salt, tar, and distant spices, an exotic perfume that hints at adventures yet to come. You settle into your crate, ready for the next leg of the long, sleepy journey. The wooden crate creaks softly as it's lifted onto the deck of a merchant ship, rocking gently on the waves beneath a sky streaked with early dawn colors. Salt air fills your senses, mingling with the faint scent of cedarwood from the ship's hull. You've left the familiar earth of the villa behind and now drift toward distant shores. Days blend into nights as the vessel cuts through the Mediterranean, the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull a soothing lullaby. The crew moves with practiced ease, hauling sails and sharing quiet jokes in a dozen tongues. You lie nestled among other goods, silks, grains, ceramics, each with stories whispered by traders and travelers. One evening, the ship docks in a bustling North African port. a place where Roman influence blends with local traditions. You're carefully unloaded and taken to a local olive press where ancient techniques mingle with new ideas brought by travelers like you. Here, the oil is prized not just for its taste, but for its role in rituals and medicine. You hear tales of oil infused with herbs for soothing tired muscles, and others brewed with exotic spices to freshen breath or ease the mind. The locals speak of the liquid gold as a gift from the gods, a connection to the land's enduring spirit. Historians still debate the extent of Roman influence on North African olive cultivation. Some see it as a spread of imperial agriculture, others as a vibrant fusion of indigenous and imported practices. You feel this blend in every drop, a living testimony to cultural exchange. By night, lanterns cast a warm glow over the olive groves, and the distant call of the muezzin mingles with the rustling of leaves. You rest quietly, cradled by history and the endless cycle of the olive's journey. The seasons turn once more, and you find yourself resting on a low wooden table in a quiet room, far from the bustling ports and groves where your journey began. The air is warm, scented faintly with herbs and old parchment, and soft light filters through a shuttered window. You are now cherished as an artifact, part memory, part treasure. The family here values you not for what you once held, but for the stories you carry. Children ask about the distant lands you've traveled, and elders speak softly of olive trees growing under foreign suns. Sometimes the oil within you is sampled carefully, a reminder of the land and labor behind every drop. At other times, you serve as inspiration for local artists who paint scenes of ancient groves and quiet harvests, blending history with imagination. Historians still argue about the olive's true symbolism. Was it merely a practical crop or a spiritual emblem woven into the fabric of Mediterranean life? You've lived both answers, in fields and festivals, in kitchens and chapels. As the light dims, you feel a deep, gentle peace settling around you. The long, sleepy journey of a Roman olive has come full circle, a quiet testament to resilience, connection, and the slow, soothing rhythms of life. Now, as your story winds down, you rest easy, ready to inspire dreams of sunlit groves and whispered history. As the day softly fades into night, imagine the gentle sway of olive branches in a warm breeze, the subtle shimmer of golden oil catching the last light of the sun. Remember the patient hands that nurtured each fruit, the slow pressing that captured summer's warmth in liquid form. Feel the calm of ancient groves stretching endlessly where time moves softly and every leaf tells a story. Let this quiet journey settle in your mind like the softest feather, a lullaby of earth and history wrapped in a gentle embrace. Rest now beneath the olive trees of memory and dream, knowing you are carried in the slow, steady pulse of ages past. Good night, and may your sleep be as peaceful and deep as the long, sleepy journey of the olive itself. You find yourself in a steamy, marble-clad room, the famous Roman baths, where water pools in gentle warmth and air hangs thick with steam. The atmosphere is soothing, even if the chatter and splashing feel oddly lively for a place meant to relax. Your role here is humble but essential. Olive oil is prized as a skin softener and muscle soother. Visitors, wrapped in their togas or bath towels, coat their bodies with oil before the scraping ritual called strigil. The oil traps dirt and sweat, and the strigil gently lifts it away, leaving skin feeling refreshed and subtly scented. You glide over skin like liquid silk,
a quiet luxury amid the clamor. There's a peculiar practice, too. Some use olive oil mixed with fragrant herbs or even crushed pearls to add a little sparkle. Historians still argue whether these additions were practical or just the Roman version of a spa day flex. You drift along with the scents of lavender, rosemary, and myrtle, and listen to conversations about politics, poetry, and who's hosting the next feast. You're part of the ritual, a silent companion in the daily care and social dance of the empire. Between moments of laughter and quiet, you realize your journey has woven through the lives of many farmers, painters, scholars, merchants, and bathers alike. Olive's path is slow but steady, moving through centuries as a soothing presence. As steam curls and warmth settles, you rest quietly, ready to glide into the next story waiting just beyond the baths. The scent of fresh bread and roasting herbs drifts softly through the kitchen of a bustling Roman villa, where the clatter of pottery, low hum of conversation form a comforting background. You rest in a simple clay jar, your golden liquid waiting to be poured. Cooking here is a gentle art. No flashy fireball, just slow simmering, careful blending of flavors. Olive oil begins the quiet start, drizzled with fresh grapes, mixed into dough for bread, used to lightly saute vegetables harvested from nearby fields. You witness cooking carefully mix you into a garum sauce, blending saltiness with your mellow warmth to create a complex of flavor that dances on the tongue.
A guest at the table praises the oil's quality, sparking a discussion about the subtle differences between oils pressed early or late in the season. Historians still debate how much regional taste was influenced by soil versus tradition, but everyone agrees that good olive oil transforms even the simplest meal. Between bites, you hear stories of feasts celebrating harvests, marriages, and military victories, where olive oil is both nourishment and symbol, a sign of prosperity and peace. Your presence is unassuming but vital, like the steady rhythm in a song or the soft glow of a candle in the evening. As the meal winds down and plates are cleared, you rest once more, carrying the warmth of the kitchen and the hum of quiet contentment. The salty breeze ruffles your glass as the merchant ship slips away from the familiar shore, embarking on yet another slow journey across the Mediterranean's vast expanse. You rest carefully in a wooden crate, surrounded by crates of spices, textiles, and ceramics, each item a silent witness to the trade winds that have shaped civilizations. Traveling by sea is a patient, rhythmic experience. Days blur together with the gentle rocking of the waves and the creak of sails overhead. At night, lanterns cast a soft glow on the deck, and the crew shares stories of distant lands, mixing myths with memory. You overhear talk of the famed silk routes and exotic goods from the East, frankincense, precious stones, and rare spices, all mingling with the more familiar olive oil, whose journey is long but steady. Historians still debate how much olive oil's trade helped connect diverse cultures versus simply serving local needs. But here, aboard the ship, you embody that global link. Occasionally, seagulls circle overhead, their cries mingling with the soft murmur of the sea. The sun warms your glass as you cross waters that have carried goods and stories for centuries. As land finally appears on the horizon, you rest quietly, feeling the pulse of history in every wave, ready for the next chapter of your slow, sleepy journey. The sun filters softly through olive branches as you find yourself carefully poured into a shallow bowl at a small temple nestled among the hills. The air is fragrant with incense and fresh herbs, and quiet chants ripple through the space like gentle waves. Here, your golden presence takes on a new role, part offering, part blessing. Olive oil is poured over altars and statues, a sacred symbol of purity and life's ongoing cycles. Worshippers anoint their skin with you, believing in your power to connect them with the divine. Priests whisper prayers as your liquid seeps into carved stone, and pilgrims carry small flasks of oil back to their homes. You feel yourself becoming part of countless rituals, weddings, births, even the welcoming of newborns. Each drop a thread in the tapestry of faith. There is a debate among scholars whether the olive oil's spiritual significance originated with earlier Mediterranean cultures or blossomed fully under Roman traditions. Regardless, your presence is a quiet reminder of continuity and reverence. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows, the temple quiets, and your role shifts once more, from sacred offering to treasured gift, bridging earth and spirit. You rest gently in this peaceful space, ready for your final chapter. Time flows slowly now, and your journey feels both distant and near. You rest in a modern kitchen, sunlight filtering softly through a window onto your smooth bottle. The world has changed, but the olive's quiet story continues. Here, you are part of morning rituals. A drizzle on fresh bread, a splash in salads, a silent guest at countless tables. Your ancient origins are a gentle whisper beneath the hum of blenders and the sizzle of pans. People speak of your legacy, tracing back to Roman groves and distant shores. Olive oil has become more than food. It's a symbol of tradition, health, and the slow rhythms of life. Historians still discuss how much the Romans shaped today's Mediterranean culture, but your presence bridges past and present effortlessly. In quiet moments, you inspire chefs and storytellers alike, reminding them of patient growth, resilience, and the beauty of small, steady steps. Your journey, a long, sleepy voyage through history, finds new life in every drop poured, every meal shared. As evening falls, you settle into the calm of home, your story now part of many lives, a gentle thread woven through time. Rest well, dear Olive, your journey a soothing lullaby for the ages. As the day softly fades into night, imagine the gentle sway of olive branches in a warm breeze, the subtle shimmer of golden oil catching the last light of the sun. Remember the patient hands that nurtured each fruit, the slow pressing that captured summer's warmth in liquid form. Feel the calm of ancient groves stretching endlessly, where time moves softly and every leaf tells a story. Let this quiet journey settle in your mind like the softest feather, a lullaby of earth and history wrapped in a gentle embrace. Rest now beneath the olive trees of memory and dream, knowing you are carried in the slow, steady pulse of ages past. Good night, and may your sleep be as peaceful and deep as the long, sleepy journey of the olive itself.